Luke 6, 12 to 16, and then 46 to 49. Luke 6, starting in verse 12, says, "One of those days, Jesus went out to a mountainside to pray and spent the night praying to God. When morning came, he called his disciples to him and chose 12 of them, whom he also designated apostles. Simon, whom he named Peter, and his brother Andrew, James, John, Philip, Bartholomew, Matthew, Thomas, James, son of Alphaeus, Simon, who was called the Zealot, Judas, son of James, and Judas the Iscariot, who became a traitor." And it says he went out with them and stood on a level place. And in Matthew, this is where we would have what's called the Sermon on the Mount. But in Luke, they call it the Sermon on the Plain, because it says he went out and stood on a level place. But there's a lot of overlap. And we're not going to read through the whole thing because it's really long. But he talks about these same things that he talks about in the Sermon on the Mount. He talks about blessings and woes. And he says things like, "Blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. And woe to you who are rich, for you have already received your comfort." He presents the same kind of upside-down kingdom that he presents in the Sermon on the Mount. He says, don't judge your life by the way the world judges it, because the kingdom has a different standard. In the kingdom, just because you're poor does not mean you're cursed. Just because you're hungry does not mean you're cursed. Just because you weep does not mean you're cursed. And just because people hate you and exclude you and insult you and reject you does not mean you're cursed. In the kingdom, you can be all of those things and be blessed. And by the same token, just because you are rich does not mean you are blessed. Just because you are well-fed now does not mean you are blessed. Just because you laugh now does not mean you are blessed. And just because people speak well of you does not mean you are blessed. He says in the kingdom, you can have all of these things, and it does not indicate blessing. And he presents these other concepts that are upside down according to our world thinking. Everybody knows that your enemy is the person that you fill in the blank. Hate, right? That everybody knows that. Your enemy is the person that you hate, but Jesus says, love your enemies. Love your enemies and do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you and pray for those who mistreat you. He presents a completely different view of what it means to walk in relationship with other human beings on the earth. I don't know about you, but I don't see very many people loving those who hate them. I just don't see it. Maybe you do in your daily life, but I don't see people being kind to those who mistreat them, loving those who hate them, doing good to those who curse them. I do see a lot of return of hatred for hatred, a lot of return of mistreatment for mistreatment, a lot of return of curses for curses. But Jesus calls us to walk in a different way. He also tells them, don't judge. Don't judge, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Instead, forgive. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over will be poured into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Jesus says, not only should you not hate your enemies and those who mistreat you, but you shouldn't be looking at the lives of other people in order to judge them. You shouldn't be looking at the lives of other people in order to condemn them. Instead, you should be offering forgiveness and grace. You should be offering forgiveness and grace. He doesn't say, don't judge because people aren't doing anything wrong. Right? He doesn't say don't condemn because there's no one who will be condemned. He doesn't say that. He just says it's better for you. It is better for you to not judge and not condemn. Instead, to heap forgiveness and grace and mercy on the heads of those who you are tempted to judge. And then he says this. He says, look, no good tree bears bad fruit, and no bad tree bears good fruit. Each tree is recognized by its own fruit. We all know that, right? That the things that are inside of us work their way out to the outside of us. We can fool people for a little bit of time, but we can't fool people forever. It comes out eventually, which is why I think that Jesus said this right after he said, don't judge and don't condemn. We don't need to. We don't need to judge. We don't need to condemn because people's actions will condemn them. The fruit of people's hearts will judge them. We don't need to be involved in pointing out the sin in other people's lives. The planks in our own eye are really what's important. So then Jesus finishes up this talk with this last section that we'll read. He says, "Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and do not do what I say? I will show you what he is like, the person who comes to me and hears my words and puts them into practice. That person is like a man who built a house, who dug down deep and laid the foundation on the rock. When a flood came, the torrent struck that house but could not shake it, because it was well built. But the one who hears my words and does not put them into practice is like a man who built a house on the ground without a foundation. The moment the torrent struck that house, it collapsed and its destruction was complete." The world gives us a blueprint for living our lives, for evaluating ourselves and others, for looking at whether or not we're in the right, whether or not we can stand up tall and be proud with our blessings. We see it all the time if we look around us. People who are doing well, and that's all that matters to them. That's all that matters to them. Look at my house, look at my car, look at my happy, perfect family. When in reality, their lives are empty, their hearts are empty, and they're desperately in need of seeing another way. Jesus comes and tells us to live our lives according to his kingdom's values. He says, "Come to me and hear my words and put them into practice." Come to me, hear my words, and put them into practice. When we do, when we begin to evaluate our lives by kingdom standards, when we begin to walk in humility, not evaluating ourselves and others by the standards of the world, we begin to paint a new picture. A picture that's upside down from the world's standards, but a picture of life and health and beauty that goes beyond the temporary trappings of this world. A picture of peace, a picture of stability, a picture of joy. And those are the things that will last through every storm. Those are the things that will last through every hardship. Those are the things that will last not just through this life, but into eternity. Jesus says, the person who comes, who hears my words, who puts them into practice, that person will build a life that will last. And that's what I want. It's what I want for me. It's what I want for you. That we build lives that last beyond our lifetime even, that have influence beyond the sphere of this world. Lives that start now and go on to eternity.